Now, before we go any further, I'd like to share with you, since I want to teach practical production techniques, in addition to getting you to think about the software logically and intuitively and comprehending, I also want to share with you the production techniques I use to get things done. One of them is one of my favorite plugins, and we're going to add a new plugin called Duplicate Post. Now, Duplicate Post enables you to take a post that already exists with all its little nuances, make a duplicate of it, and then make changes over on top of it. So I'm going to type in the word Duplicate Post and hit the return key. And that brings up your Duplicate Post widget, or I should say plugin. We're going to install that, and we're going to activate it. Now, notice it at 1.3 million downloads, so obviously it works. All right. Now, the advantage of what I just did, if I go back to Pages for a second, is let's say that I have a client, and most clients are a little fickle, changes all the time. How do you know your client wants changes? Their lips are moving. So what I want to do, because I have this new plugin installed, is I can go and I can clone this existing so that I could have version 1, version 2, version 3. I could also make a new draft out of this. Now, when you clone something by default, now don't confuse, vocabulary is important. In the software world, don't confuse copying with cloning and duplicating. Copying typically implies pasting, copy-paste, which goes to the clipboard. I don't want to get into details, but understand that those are different aspects, different things. So we're going to clone this. So that's going to give us, and I could do that inside the interface as well, and I think it's easier to do it inside the interface, and I'm going to edit that. So right over here, we can copy this to a new draft, or we can clone it. Now, right now, it's exactly the same. Exactly the same. So let's share this with you again. Let's go back here for a second. And I have this draft. Let's actually trash that. All right, so let's go and open up what we had before. Let's simply go to edit that and share with you the other way to do this. So we're going to make a copy of this. And once you make a copy of it, then it doesn't become separate until I'm going to change the name of this. So let's call this version 2. And publish. So the advantage of what I just did is I now have 2 separate versions, and I don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel. So it's a really nice production tool. Here's page 1, here's page 1, version 2, version 3, version 4, version 5. Again, we're going to click right here and edit this with Visual Composer. So by default, it becomes a draft until you do something with it. Now that takes you to the front end, which I can go here and make changes to the front end, or we're going to go into the back end. Again, at this point, I think it's a little bit more intuitive if you don't get overwhelmed with all that stuff happening in the front. I think it's much easier to understand how to work with this in the back end. So based on these choices, in this version, we decided to just go with 4 pictures up, so I'm going to take and delete this row. Now keep in mind that this is a version of the other one, so if I have to, I can always go back to that other one. So it's really kind of cool. All right. Now if I put my cursor here, I can actually break this into separate columns, which is really pretty cool. So if I click here, I get 2 columns. Now keep in mind that this text box element is not going to break the text box into 2 columns. It's going to break this row into 2 columns. So therefore, I could now put different information in here. So I could put another text block in here as an example. So I'm going to click right there, and I could pick a text block. I'm going to put a text block, and now it's the same text block. And again, you can go and make any kind of changes you want. You can go into your shortcodes, etc., etc. We're going to keep this really simple and simply say save and update this. Now at this point, it's really important to understand and comprehend the difference between the block and the element itself. And if I wanted to change any of these, by the way, so let's say as an example that I want to have text block followed by picture, and then I want to have picture followed by text block. So what I can do is I can take this whole entire element, because this is one whole element. If I wanted to make it separate elements, and I would have to build it that way, which means when I put in this element, I would probably pick the single image. So let's actually do that. Let's delete that element. Actually, My mistake on that. That's not what I meant to do. So here's a little trick. I'm going to stay on page. Actually, I made my mistake. I'm going to leave page, but not save the changes. So this is back in version 2. That's just a little slick little thing I did before I updated because I made a mistake and I clicked the wrong button. So if you ever get in a jam there, you can always get out of the page and just don't save the changes, and it will basically solve the same issue. All right, so I'm going to delete the image here. If I click here, that's going to delete the column. I don't want to delete the column. I just want to delete the image itself. Now I want to put a new image inside of here. So I'm going to delete this image as well. And I simply want to put a single image in here minus the text. Now I could have just deleted the text too, but I just want to share with you how this works. So I click right here. Again, I can go to my different structures here. I just want to go to single image, or I can go to image gallery. So single image in here, and I'm just going to navigate my way to an image. I'm going to put this image here. Again, I'm going to type in medium. One step at a time. So I want to have text followed by image. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to get rid of that information. So I have text followed by image and update. And then down at the bottom, I could have image followed by text, etc., etc. So depending on how you want to lay this out, it's really, really intuitive. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to delete that altogether. And I'm going to take this text block and simply move it over to the right. Now you'll notice I can't move it to the right because there's no container here. So what I can do is I can put a container there by clicking right there. I can add a new element. So very important to understand where you click is going to affect that particular block or element or row. The hierarchy is up here on the top. So again, I'm going to back out of here and I'm going to say go ahead and leave the page because I don't want to save those changes. And it's going to come back to the page the way I had it a second ago. Again, this is still version 2 because I haven't done any updates. It's a good habit to make a change and save a change. Now, here's what I'd like to do. This is going to edit the entire row. So I'm going to edit this entire row, and I want to change the background of this entire row. So based on these choices, I can click right here. And based on these choices, I'm going to click background. And I can pick background style, gradient color, parallax, YouTube video. I can put all kinds of stuff in my background. We're going to do a single color. And the color we'll pick is just a light reddish color, something like that, and save the changes. I update this. I go back to preview changes. And there is my new background color there. Now, if you want to change the height of this, of course, you would put the height in there. Now, here's another alternative you can do, which is really kind of nice. So let's close this. And let's close this, which takes us right back to our changes. Let's update that. Now, if you don't want to affect, and this is something I use all the time with Visual Composer. If you don't want to affect the leading or the information on top, what we can do is we can put what's called a spacer element in here. Okay, so under content, I have my different information, and I have my empty space. So I can put an empty space at the top, and I can put an empty space at the bottom. So we're going to do a height of 32 pixels. That's what it defaults to, and we're going to save those changes. So the spacer got put down here at the bottom, but that's not where I want it. So I'm going to take this and drag it up to the top because I want to put a spacer before my block here, and then I want to put a spacer afterwards. Well, the easiest way to put a spacer that's 32 pixels high at the bottom of this is to simply clone it. So I clone the spacer and then just take the spacer and put it at the bottom. So now it's sandwiched between the two. Now I'm going to share with you a cool technique for doing a background image and then put text in the middle of the background image with a spacer. And we'll do this in our next video. So stay tuned.